I'm not sure if you guys have heard of food combining, but it's a philosophy of eating that has ancient roots, yet still is practiced today. Those that support a food combining diet do believe that improper food combinations can lead to diseases, toxin buildup, and digestive issues. They also believe that proper combinations can actually help relieve these problems. But is there any truth to these claims? Today, we are going to take a closer look and look at the research to determine whether food combining is effective. You're listening to the Digestive podcast, and I'm your host, Bethany Cameron. Let's dive right in. We are in the thick of flu season. Everyone is just getting over all the holiday rush, all the eating sweets, and everyone's catching a cold. So, I don't have a secret method. I wish I did, but one of my favorite arsenals to keep my immunity in its topmost best shape possible is Manuka honey. Manuka honey contains a special antibacterial compound called MGO, and the higher the MGO concentration in the honey, the stronger its antibacterial effect. So obviously you want the highest MGO possible. Now, there's a lot on the market, and of course, the higher the MGO, the more expensive it is, but I have a deal because quality products do sometimes cost a little bit of money. But if you go to manukora.com/digest, you will get an amazing discount and some extra goodies. So again, that's manukora.com/digest. And that's going to get you a whopping discount plus some free goodies. I hope you love this honey just as much as I do. All right, I want you guys to get really comfortable here, whether you're on a walk, in the car driving, or maybe you have your pajamas on and you're just ready to chill with a cup of tea. I want you to listen up, listen in, because food combining, it's a hot topic, and it's been a hot topic for a long time. And for those that don't know, food combining is a concept based on the idea that certain foods pair well together when eaten, while other foods do not pair well together and can have adverse effects on one's health. The belief is that combining foods improperly, for example, eating a steak with the potatoes, can lead to negative effects on health and digestion. Now, generally, food combining diets assign foods to different groups. These are usually broken down into carbs, starches, fruits, vegetables, proteins, and fats. Food combining diets specify how you should combine these groups in a meal. Now, I first want to just point out that I am kind of on the fence on this because as you will see as we get deeper into this podcast, there are some extremes I just don't agree with, and then there are many I do. For example, I do believe that when eating vegetables with fats like avocado or olive oil, it can be helpful and help nutrient absorption, and there's even been several studies to back this. And eating rice and yogurt can also help with a bloated tummy, or if you're, just having an upset stomach in general can really help. Now, on the negative side, eating melons with any food, especially dairy, it can cause loads of gas and discomfort. I'm not sure if you guys have ever heard that you should not eat dairy with seafood. That's another claim, and you may have heard over and over again that just dairy and seafood don't go well together. And you may be like thinking, just like me, I'm like, okay, well, then why all the clam chowder, lobster mac and cheese, and creamy shrimp fettuccine alfredo, like all these dishes that are like specific to like dairy and seafood. Now, just because there are dishes out there with so-called no-no combinations doesn't mean they are going to benefit our health. Now, like restaurants can serve whatever they want to, and we can choose to eat whatever we want to, right? Just like fast food joints can offer deep fried French fries in canola oil, and we as humans have the freedom to buy and eat it or not. So the same thing goes for these popular food combinations. Just because it's out there and it's promoted, it doesn't mean that they are, quote, a good combination. Now, companies offer tons of these combinations, but will these food combos cause more harm and discomfort when eaten together rather than eating them separate? We will get back to that. I first want to touch on the common rules of food combining. Now, the laws of food combining can vary somewhat depending on the source, but the most common rules are eating fruit only on an empty stomach, especially melons. Avoid combining starches and proteins. Avoid combining starches with acidic foods. Avoid combining different types of protein. And consuming dairy only on an empty stomach, especially milk. Other rules say that protein should not be mixed with fat, sugar should only be eaten alone, and fruits and vegetables should be eaten separately. Now, again, these are the quote, food combining laws, and I probably agree with the melon part and fruit and veggies at times, like depending on what veggie and what fruit, and eating them separately can definitely benefit your health and digestion. But in terms of not eating fat and protein together or starches and proteins, just that to me is just a bit too much. But again, there's really no one size fits all when it comes to your health, and many have experienced great relief when following the strict food combining methods. So, who am I to say it won't work for you? Now, the beliefs on food combining are based upon two. The first is that because foods are digested at different speeds, combining a fast digesting food with a slow digesting food causes a, quote, traffic jam in your digestive tract, leading to negative effects on health and digestion. The second belief is that different foods require different enzymes to be broken down, and that these enzymes work at varying pH levels of acidity in your gut. So the idea is that if two foods require different pH levels, your body cannot properly digest both at the same time. Proponents of food combining diets believe that these principles are essential to proper health and digestion. They also believe that improper food combining causes toxins to build up and leads to negative health consequences such as digestive distresses and diseases. That's where eating melons alone on an empty stomach and dairy and seafood can play into the toxic buildup part. Now, let's look at what the evidence and science says. Now, so far, only one study has examined the principles of food combining. It looked at whether a diet based on food combining had an effect on weight loss. So it wasn't even about digestion or gut health. It was focusing more on weight loss. So the participants in this study were split into two groups and given either a balanced diet or a diet based on the principles of food combining. On both diets, they were allowed to eat only 1,100 calories per day, which, side note, I feel is very restrictive and we should be eating way more than that. But nonetheless, this was what the study did. After 6 weeks, the participants in both groups had lost an average of 13 to 18 pounds, but the food combining diet offered no benefit over the balanced diet. So I personally think they lost weight not because of the food combining principles, but just because they were on a 1,100 calorie diet. Anyways, I'll digress. So to that point, there is no evidence to support most of the principles of food combining. What's more is that many of the original food combining diets were developed more than 100 years ago when much less was known about nutrition and digestion in general. What we now know about basic biochemistry and nutritional science directly contradicts most of the principles of food combining. But let's take a closer look at the science behind these claims. So let's talk about avoiding mixed meals. So the term, quote, mixed meals refers to meals that contain a combination of fat, carbs, and protein. The rules of food combining are largely based on the idea that the body is not equipped to digest mixed meals. However, this is not the case as the human body evolved on a diet of whole foods, which almost always contains some combination of carbs, protein, and fat. For example, vegetables and grains are typically considered carb-containing foods, but they all also contain several grams of protein per serving. Additionally, now, although meat is considered a protein, even lean meat contains some fat. Therefore, because many foods contain a combination of carbs, fat, and protein, your digestive tract is always prepared to digest a mixed meal. When food enters your stomach, gastric acid is released along with the enzymes pepsin and lipase, which help start digestion of protein and fat. And get this, you guys, research even shows that pepsin and lipase are released even if your food contains no protein or fat. Next, food moves into your small intestine, and your intestine is flooded with enzymes that work to break down proteins, fats, and carbs. For this reason, there's no need to worry that your body will have to choose between digesting protein and fat or starches. In fact, it's specifically prepared for this type of multitasking. Now, regarding the food altering the pH of the digestive tract, now, this is another theory behind food combining, and that is eating the wrong foods together can hinder digestion by creating the wrong pH for certain enzymes to function. The pH scale measures how acidic or alkaline a solution is. It ranges from 0 to 14, where 0 is the most acidic, 7 is about neutral, and 14 is the most alkaline. It is true that enzymes need a specific pH range to function properly, and that not all enzymes in the digestive tract require the same pH. However, eating foods that are more alkaline or acidic does not significantly change the pH of your digestive tract, and your body has several ways of keeping the pH of each part of your digestive tract within the correct range. So, for example, your stomach is usually very acidic with a low pH of between 1 to 3. But when you eat a meal, it may initially rise as high as 5. However, more gastric acid is quickly released until the pH comes back down. Maintaining this low pH is important because it helps start the digestion of proteins and activates the enzymes produced in your stomach. It also allows and helps to kill any bacteria in our food. In fact, the pH inside your stomach is so acidic that the only reason your stomach lining isn't destroyed is that it's protected by a layer of mucus. Your small intestine, on the other hand, is not equipped to handle such an acidic pH. Your small intestine adds bicarbonate to the mix as soon as the contents of your stomach enter it. Bicarbonate is your body's natural buffering system. It's very alkaline, so it neutralizes the gastric acid, keeping the pH around 6 to 7. This is the pH at which the enzymes in your small intestine function best. In this way, the different levels of acidity in your digestive tract are well controlled by your body's own sensors. So in the end, if you eat a very acidic or alkaline meal, your body will add more or less digestive juices as needed to achieve the necessary pH level. Isn't that amazing? So, a lot of you know, back in October, I announced that I was dealing with mold in my lungs, and I have a huge team on my side, tons of different types of doctors, holistic, mold experts. I have Western medicine, Eastern medicine, and one of the mold experts that I am currently working with told me when we first met about all the different things to start taking to support the detox process of the mold. And one of them was actually element, specifically element. She said you need to get your electrolytes in, your magnesium, your salts, your potassium, and she wanted to make sure that I was doing an electrolyte drink mix every single day, despite if I was sweating, working out, etc. And so I was like, well, I already take that. So I just thought that it was super cool to have someone holistic in my corner recommending Element. I personally take the unflavored. They have tons of other flavors to choose from. I just love the unflavored. It's just simple, 3 ingredients, nothing else, no stevia, no natural flavors. So all that to say is I highly recommend trying Element. If you use my code digest at checkout, or you can go to DRINKLMNT.com/digest, you'll get 8 free packs to try. And if you don't like it, hey, guess what? You can give it away to a friend and they'll refund your money for whatever you purchased. No questions asked. So I feel like you have nothing to lose. Again, go to DRINKLMNT.com/digest. All right, let's talk about food fermenting in the stomach. So, one of the most common supposed effects of improper food combining is that food ferments or it just rots in your stomach, supposedly when a fast digesting food is combined with a slow digesting food. The fast digesting food stays in your stomach so long that it begins to ferment. However, this does not happen. Fermentation and rotting occurs when microorganisms start to digest your food. But as mentioned earlier, your stomach maintains such an acidic pH that almost no bacteria can survive. I also want to note that I am referring to a healthy GI tract. So if you are one to have like GI issues and perhaps lacking stomach acid, food combining may be helpful in the short term to manage symptoms, all while you are actively trying to address the root issue of low stomach acid. So there are benefits of food combining for those with sensitive and a compromised gut. Now, there is one place in your digestive tract where bacteria thrive and fermentation does occur. This is in your large intestine, also known as your colon, where trillions of beneficial bacteria live. The bacteria in your large intestine ferment any undigested carbs, such as fiber, and release gas and beneficial short chain fatty acids as waste products. In this case, fermentation is actually a good thing. The fatty acids the bacteria produce have been linked to health benefits such as reduced inflammation, improved blood sugar control, and a lower risk of colon cancer. Now, this also means that the gas you experience after a meal is not necessarily a bad thing, but instead can be a sign that your friendly bacteria are well fed. And let me tell you, sometimes after I eat my own homemade yogurt, I notice my gut is very well fed, if you know what I mean. Now, let's dive into some evidence-based examples of food combining. So, although the principles of food combining diets are not backed truly by science, that doesn't mean that the way you combine foods is always irrelevant. For example, there are many evidence-based food combinations that can significantly improve or reduce the digestion and absorption of certain foods. So here are a few examples. So you may have heard about citrus and iron. So iron comes in 2 forms in the diet. So there's heme iron, which comes from meat, and non-heme iron, which comes from plant sources. Heme iron is very well absorbed but your body's absorption rate for the non-heme iron is very low. So about maybe 1 to 10%. It's very low. Luckily, there are several things that you can do to increase your absorption of this kind of iron. Adding vitamin C is one of the most effective ways to increase iron absorption. So again, Heme iron comes from meat. The non-heme iron comes from plant sources. So I'm talking about the plant sources of iron. If you add vitamin C, it makes it more readily available and easier to absorb. So in addition to making the non-heme iron, which is the plant iron, more easily absorbable by adding the vitamin C actually decreases the ability of the phytic acid in the plants to block iron absorption. This means combining foods, again, rich in vitamin C, such as citrus fruits and bell peppers and things like that, with the plant-based sources of iron like spinach, beans, things like that. Those are high in iron regarding plant sources. That's an excellent combination. Now, let's talk about carrots and fat. I've talked about this on my Instagram, but if you guys don't follow me there, I'm just going to reiterate it here. Certain nutrients, like they're very fat soluble. So carotenoids, for example, it's prevalent in carrots, the sweet potatoes, anything that's basically orange, right? So they need fat in order to be absorbed by the body. Carotenoids are just compounds found, like I said, in even red, orange, and dark green vegetables, including carrots, even tomatoes, bell peppers, spinach, broccoli, etc. Studies show that carotenoid-rich diets may reduce the risk of some health conditions such as certain cancers, heart disease, and even vision problems. However, research has also shown that if you consume these vegetables without any fat, eating a plain carrot stick or a salad with fat-free dressing, for example, you just may be missing out on the benefits. You might as well not even be eating it. So you have to include a good source of fat. So there's studies that have found that consuming these vegetables with dressings like olive oil or like a good source of fat, maybe some avocado, things like that, it was associated with an increased absorption of the carotenoids. Now, speaking of spinach, let's talk about spinach and dairy products specifically. So foods like spinach, chocolate, and tea, they all contain oxalates. This is an anti-nutrient that can bind with calcium to form an insoluble compound. This can be good or bad for you depending on the circumstances. For people who are prone to certain types of kidney stones, consuming calcium sources such as dairy products with oxalate-containing foods can actually decrease the risk of developing kidney stones. Now, on the other hand, combining oxalates and calcium decreases the absorption of calcium in general. So for most people, this is no problem in the context of a balanced diet. However, for people who don't eat much calcium in the first place or who eat a diet very high in oxalates, this interaction might cause a problem. So if you are concerned about getting enough calcium from your diet, avoid combining dairy products and other calcium-rich foods with foods that are high in oxalates. So foods that are high in oxalates include spinach, nuts, tea, chocolate even, beets, rhubarb, and strawberries, among many others. So you can definitely Google and see what foods are super high in oxalates. So now I want to go back to the whole dairy and seafood topic for a second here. So fish is considered a hot food and milk is considered a cooling food. And together it's been thought to produce an imbalance that can cause chemical changes in the body. Numerous dietitians agree with the Ayurvedic theory. Now this is concerning the cooling and heating effects. So thus they advise a lot of people to just avoid this combination. And the combination is, of course, dairy and seafood. So although this combination is very common in many cultures, again, it is advised to just stay clear from it, especially if your immune system is already compromised. All right, now this is the bottom line, you guys. I think that it is fine to incorporate the principles of food combining into a healthy, well-rounded diet if you find that it works for you, especially if your gut is compromised. I personally do practice a few of these, but not all. And I have always been one to stress that eating too much of a variety at once can actually cause digestive issues and discomfort, especially when making a smoothie that contains like 10 plus ingredients, right? Like 10 or more ingredients. It's just way too much. So, on my Instagram, like tons of my Instagram followers have even come back and told me after they stopped adding the rainbow, quote, the rainbow to their smoothies and just stuck to a couple main staples in their smoothies, they felt so much better and were less bloated. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't eat a variety in your diet, but you don't have to eat a variety all in one meal. I like to look at the week as a whole, and you can eat different foods on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and still get the benefits. So don't think you have to pound down the rainbow all in a day. I'm sure you've heard that to get the benefits of salmon, just eat it 1 to 2 times a week. And even liver only needs to be consumed once a week to obtain its nutrients. That's, obviously depending on the serving size, of course. So all this to say, if you feel good separating or combining certain foods, do it. There's really no downside as long as you are still getting in your required nutrients throughout the week. I hope today's bite of knowledge was insightful, educational, and piqued your interest into food combining, and perhaps it will help you explore more, and maybe it just turned on a light bulb as to maybe what's hindering your digestion, or maybe some things that maybe you need to add some fat to your carrots, like who knows. So if it was helpful, please send me a message on Instagram letting me know that you listened and enjoyed it. And if you think you know someone that could benefit from it, please share it with them. I always appreciate it, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to this episode of Digest This. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review in your podcast app to let us know. If you're ever wondering how you can support me and this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family is the best way. This is a Resonant Media production produced by Drake Peterson and edited by Mike Fry. To email the show, message us at digestthispod@gmail.com. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team first.